Hi, this is JP Newman, and today you're going to get a treat. Was a guest recently on a podcast called Pivotal Moments, and it was really funny when they had interviewed me. They said, JP, you're going to tell us things in your pivotal moments that you've never disclosed before anywhere else on any other podcast. And I said, sure, you'll never get those out of me. I'm not even sure if I haven't even disclosed everything. But I think you're going to see through the episode, it was really interesting. They asked me a lot of questions about purpose, life, philosophy, and how it all works. Like, how do you actually do the building blocks of happiness? And I found myself going into areas that were really uncomfortable, vulnerable, personal, and they definitely got some things out of me that you're going to hear in the episode that I've never disclosed before. And I hope more than anything, hopefully it's interesting, but beyond being interesting, I hope that it can help you, give you some of your own ideas of how to build a life that's right for you with success and happiness. And of course, abundance and wealth is all part of that. I hope you enjoy the episode.
As a founder of Thrive FP, and with $1.5 billion in total transaction value since 2011 under his belt, JP has a front seat to the financial, political, economic, and technological developments that are driving explosive trends across industries. Hot dang. That's what I'm talking about, dude. JP's vision for his real estate investment firm is leading the way to changing the landscape of American workforce housing by driving positive social impact for the missing middle class in the U.S., driven by his unwavering passion for using the best practices of putting people first, coupled with a core value of respect for everyone. His company Thrive FP and nonprofit Veritas Impact Partners have proven that being purpose-driven for good is the only way to build a better society and wealth. Dude, I was at a 10 and we're popping it to an 11 right now. Let's go. His passion and purpose of enriching lives continue to evolve into a solid business model which outperforms his competitors through higher resident retention. JP, welcome.
Thank you.
Holy smokes, man. There's so much heart in that. It's amazing. You can tell, you can feel it.
Thank you.
It's no cookie cutter bio. Welcome to the show. Let's kick it off by asking you a couple questions.
Sure.
What have you been up to these days? Let's talk a little about where you're at.
Yeah.
What have you been doing?
It's been an interesting year, obviously. Real estate isn't, after 11 years of having the best real estate cycle on the planet where it's almost, you could like throw a dart at the dartboard and win. This quite hasn't been that same kind of year as you could imagine. We've had to watch values drop. And with that, investors who are used to making money on every single deal, not every deal is performing right now. And, navigating people's emotions. But you and I both know these are all cycles. Like, I have an amazing team and we only work at 110%. So the good news is, like, for me, and everything's generally actually pretty good. But again, when you're used to like being on a wave, on the top of the wave, and people kind of forget these are economic cycles, because it hasn't felt like a cycle. It's just felt like things can only go one direction.
Yeah.
But they actually are cycles, and it's actually a healthy cycle because we do want affordable housing for people and humans. Rents can't just keep going inextricably up, just like housing prices can't keep going up. So you do need some clearing. Yeah, and I think greed creates over speculation. And so I kind of see this as a moment of like, it's like a new season. Right now we're kind of in winter, but after winter comes spring, right?
Yeah.
So you need this like destruction to create creation and to create new opportunities for people and also reset the clock. So not everyone likes to hear that, but that's just the way life is. So I spend a lot of time with our clients. I'm already kind of thinking of the next opportunities in the next cycle, how they'll look like, trying to kind of figure out, I'm the kind of person I'd like to kind of figure out what's next. Like, I'm more the creator and the manifester. So I'm already kind of thinking about what things will look like in 2 or 3 years from now and kind of how to like adjust for the next cycle.
Do you take more of an analytical approach or a market sentiment approach to figure out what's going to happen?
A little bit of both. I'm an IQ, EQ guy. I rely a lot on my gut, but my head, I joke because I'm distantly related to Albert Einstein on my dad's side. So my dad always could do math in his head, and I think I've been given the same gift. Usually when people are on a spreadsheet, I'm kind of a little faster than them. And not because like I know everything on a spreadsheet. I just kind of know the EQ, IQ. It's just something I've been given since I was a kid.
Yeah.
I get to the answer pretty fast.
That's cool.
Yeah, it is cool.
That's good. That's helpful.
I got a great question here.
Yeah.
You just explained to us, kind of all the things you're focused on. There's not a lot of people who reach the level of success that you have. It's a beautiful thing, and I'm personally honored to be here and having this conversation with you. And on top of that, to see like the grace and the light in your eyes and how just humble you are, it's really inspiring.
Thank you.
To reach that level of success and keep that type of humility, at that level, what are the ingredients to something like that?
Getting kicked in the ass a bunch of times is certainly a good start. Yeah. I actually think for me, I 20 years old, I started listening to Tony Robbins thinking, I'm going to be a millionaire and have all these things. And I was really disciplined and nothing worked out the way I thought it was going to work out. And I think in hindsight, when I go back to how hard I worked and how many failures that I had, that in a way it humbles you and also makes you appreciate what you have in a way that maybe if you were just given all the gifts early, if you were just like your first thing you tried and it worked, you may never get to realize how hard and the dark times and the times you're like, oh shit, my story is so bad. Yeah. I'm embarrassed to go to this party. Yeah. Because my story sucks at the moment. So I don't feel good.
Trials and tribulations, the challenges are what bred you to be where you are. And they also kind of have a lot to do with that humility that you have as well now.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. Also, I don't know if you guys know this, but I started out at, coming from Los Angeles, I started working at my first career was at Sony Pictures. I was vice president of family entertainment. I produced animation. Okay. And so I got to see a lot of the Hollywood culture, which was super fun. Like get to meet, going to all these parties and stuff. But I also saw the ridiculousness and the excess of it. And while part of it's really fun, being part of the creative process, got to meet a lot of egos. I got to work with a lot of people with a lot of thick egos and see the ridiculousness of it. And I don't know, somehow it just didn't jive with me. Like I thought it was kind of funny and sick. And I had to work for some of those tyrants, and that, where they yell and scream and freak out over their lattes. And so maybe in some ways coming from that, I worked for a guy once who was pretty famous. He was the head of a studio. And when I took him to a psychiatrist, the rule was in his Jaguar, I had to do circles because he never wanted to wait more than like 3 minutes. Oh, wow. And then so celebrities would be calling in. I'd see all these famous people calling into a cell phone. Yeah. And I'm like 19 years old just doing circles. Just going circles around a psychiatrist. Wow. While, and you're just like, you see that crazy stuff. And then he was looking for a brain tumor for years. He made all these movies. I told you he was. Like, he's very famous. Yeah. And he would always look for a brain tumor, and I'd have to drive him, and I couldn't talk to him. And like, it had to be silent unless spoken to. And everyone was afraid of him and the whole thing. And so one day I decided to speak to him because I'm like, so do you have a brain tumor? After like the 19th time of taking him to the hospital. It's like, no brain tumor. And I think he was surprised that I even said that. I said, have you thought about meditation? And then I got fired.
Unreal. That's what it's like, though. Right?
I think coming from that, like it puts things in perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope he's meditating today. I hope he listened to you and picked that up because meditation.
I doubt it. His whole office was chain smokers. They feared. The rule was you always had to tip 120% of whatever he ate. Like whatever I picked up for him, you tip 120% of the bill, so they knew it was his lunch. And everything had to be perfect.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was an interesting time.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Yeah. Sure.
So you talked a little bit about where you're at right now and more of the business side. What about what's going on the personal side of your life?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting time. On the family side, it's a really cool time. I've got 2 kids in high school that are really fine young men. And it's super fun after all the years of you watch your kids come from babies and this is that moment, everyone's like, oh my God, they're leaving the nest. But I would think as a parent, at least my experience is that seeing fine people, like knowing that they're fine people. And yes, I take some credit to that, but they're really their own fine people now. And that's really fun knowing that somehow some of it's maybe skill, some of it might be luck. I don't know what you'd call it, but to actually see that there's going to be some fine young people coming on the planet is really fulfilling and exciting for them.
Imagine.
Yeah,
how fulfilling that is.
It's pretty incredible.
That seems like it completes the circle.
It does,
right?
Yeah, and I don't know how I'll feel like when they're getting pretty close to leaving. Everyone's, oh, it's such a freak out, and it might be a freak out, but it's not that much of a freak out because I feel the joy that I know I'm confident. I don't know what their journey is going to be, but I know they're ready for it, whatever that means.
Yeah.
And that's a cool feeling.
So just the 2 boys?
Just the 2 boys.
How far apart are they?
20 months, junior and a senior in high school.
Oh, snap.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's really fun.
Yeah.
And then, I think looking at life, I think that I've traveled a lot of the world. I've met a lot of people. I've been very fortunate, I've just met a lot of influencers on the planet at this point, and from, meeting a lot of billionaires these days. I don't know why that is. Maybe there's more billionaires on the planet. Like
200.
how many?
Yeah, just around 30.
Yeah, so it's really strange. I've just noticed where I had never met a billionaire in my life 5 years ago. All of a sudden, I met a lot of billionaires.
Same here.
We
right?
too, actually.
It's like it's very interesting, and so you kind of get the gamut of traveling in Africa in these villages that have no power to that, and these elite conferences and political things, and you go to the TED Talks and you do all that stuff, and I think what's kind of cool about it is I feel like I have a pretty good slice of what's going on for good and bad. I tend to be an optimist, but it is an interesting moment in time for both America and the world. And I'm trying to figure out how to serve in the biggest way that I can. I certainly can't change the outcome that I'd like for the presidential elections and stuff like that. Can't change this war in the Middle East. I can't change the war in Ukraine, although I wish I could, but I can't.
Yeah.
But, I think it's like, for me right now, it's like, how do you win minds and hearts one person at a time right now without trying? Like, I'm not trying to like do anything, but like be a guiding light for people because it's a very confused world. And I think that sometimes, especially if you've had some degree of success, people look up to you, but I want them to look up to me or other people for the right reason. It's not because of what I've done or maybe what I have or don't have. It almost doesn't matter.
It's because...
Yeah, it's who are you? What's your moral character? What do you stand for? Are you serving your purpose forward? What's your legacy? Like all the things that actually really matter.
Yeah.
And that's actually the only thing that's really interesting. Sure, cars are fun and traveling's great, man. Money, I have no problem with money. Money's fun as can be. I'm taking my family on this really cool trip this summer and all that stuff, but that's the experience of it.
Where are you going?
Well, I'm going to Croatia. I think I'm going to charter a boat and go through the islands.
Okay.
With the fam. That'll be fun.
Solid move.
My son is hysterical. He gave me like 5 parameters, and that's what I've come up with. I know it's 5 parameters.
Heck yeah. Nice.
I think that's not a bad trip for a 16-year-old.
No.
But this idea right now, I think people being confused, I think that a lot of the frustration, if you think about it, like why is, America so divided right now? Why are people so angry at each other? Why do we get so pissed off on social media so quickly? And I think there's this feeling of people don't feel like they're getting their fair share. I think they feel like they're being taken advantage of either by their government, their politicians, business leaders, or other people. They don't feel like it's like the system's rigged. And I don't necessarily disagree. I'm a nerd, so I love the tax code. I have to know the tax code because I got investors on myself. So like I look at the tax codes, I look at policy, and to say it's just and equal would not be true. I mean, there's lobbyists, are with big companies and look who pushes and look where look how politicians get elected. And so I see it and I can feel the frustration and I can see that if you feel like you're being left behind, then you're going to like rebel. But the thing about that is, just destroying and blowing up shit doesn't solve the problem. And I feel like right now it's almost like anger in the streets, like let's just blow shit up. And I don't, I love this country. I love democracy. I don't care if you're red, blue. I don't care what party you're with. I mean, I think we're very fortunate. I mean, look at you. Look what you've been able to create. Look what you're creating right now in the business you're building. Look at the conversation we can have right now and not worry, are we being listened to? And so this little gentle experiment called democracy, I absolutely love. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. I think we're all lucky to be Americans and I think we should value it. And I'm just a little worried about, I get the frustrations, I empathize with it, but I think this idea of blowing shit up is a bad idea. I think trying to go from conflict to consensus is super important right now. And what are we actually all for versus what we're all against? And I think if we can change conversations with people on every level, and that's kind of what I'm about right now. You need to give me a topic, whether it's the Middle East war or it's our own democracy, what can we agree on? And, and that's kind of what interests me at this moment.
I have just a quick perspective on that. It's more of a psychological perspective.
Sure.
I've been in that field for about the same. I've been in real estate about 3 or 4 years or so. Master's degree in psychology. I worked for an amazing mindset coaching business out of the UK called Total Mental Performance. And we had this technique that we did if we ever felt any inner conflict with ourselves or with any client, because we worked with each other too. There was 4 of us on a team and we were all licensed. We all helped each other too.
Sure.
And we would take any conflict and we would put one side of it in this hand, the other side of it in this hand. And we would start to get down to the specifics of what they actually desired and wanted. By the end of it, you're almost in tears because you find it's the same thing.
Yeah.
They want the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
They're just, they see things differently.
Different road
The
to get
mind
to the
and
same
the body,
place.
you know, they have a different type of way of experiencing things. So I think fundamentally, I think deep down, we all do want the same things.
Yeah.
We just, confused is a good word like you used earlier.
Yeah. It's funny. I can't talk about it too much. My wife and I have completely opposite. When we got married, we had the same political views, and now they couldn't be more different. And so we've had to like navigate that together.
Who says you can't talk about it too much?
Yeah. Well, you know,
Is that what you said?
I don't want to call my wife out, but you know, I'm not going to tell you who's you know, the policies don't matter. But it's been an interesting, difficult at times, super difficult at times, and it almost like forced us, because we, you know, our goal was to be happy together and not be in conflict. So it forces the exploration and journey of how do you go from conflict to consensus, and what you realize, not only do you want to get to not only do we all basically want the same thing, safety for our children, peace, freedom, like we actually want the same thing. You start to realize it's just sometimes you have a different roadmap or a different prescriptive of how to get there, but you actually, all of us humans actually want the same basic.
I know.
We want to feel loved.
Yeah.
I mean, more than anything else, what do we really want? We want to feel loved. We want to feel healthy in our bodies. We want to feel safe. We want to have freedom to do things. We want to be able to express.
Yeah.
Like if you get the basic things done, you know, then you can go into Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Then we can go play, and there's all kinds of levels of consciousness of where you're at in your consciousness, with gratitude being one of the highest, and feeling enslaved, like slavery is the lowest level of consciousness. Being a victim is the second lowest level of consciousness. There's actually 5 levels of consciousness. There's one above gratitude that I'll think of in a second.
Self-actualization potentially. I'm thinking of these charts I've seen where it's like this rainbow like V.
Yeah.
It's like 0 is like you're saying is like grief or like you know, apathy, and then as you work your way up, it's I think definitely love, gratitude, and then the very, very top is self-actualization.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's, you know, that's important.
So if you think about like what is the consensus actually for all humanity, that would be those higher level of states would be what we're actually all trying to drive to, but we use religion, color, race, gender, and all this other stuff to kind of confuse the illusion of separateness, and that keeps us further away from it.
I think most people even realize that.
Yeah.
I don't think if you ask 100, let's say 100,000 people, what are you wanting? They're going to say, I want money. They're going to say, I want a car. They're going to say, I want these things.
I want a girl. I want a guy.
They don't realize that it's the state of consciousness or the state of existence, their state of being that they're actually seeking, that actually determines their experience in this present moment.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's a massive gap. And I think that education or that wisdom that is missing for someone to even begin to explore that within their intrinsic experience.
Yeah. You know, the other thing too, it's very easy as we sit here in this beautiful office in Austin, Texas, and you're in the most beautiful suit, and I'm drinking my beautiful cold coffee, my cold brew from Starbucks with a nice glass of water. It's a very luxurious thing to say, but knowing that a lot of the world is in complete survival, like where am I going to get my next meal from? Like, I don't even know like where my next, like safety or security. We're sitting from a very high class place.
Yeah.
And I don't know that all human beings or many human beings have even had, you know, if you don't feel safe, you can't get anywhere with your emotions. As you know, safety is paramount. And again, if you're not sure about food security or your future or your freedom, it's hard to get to those higher levels. So I have a lot of empathy that it's not just like, it's not that humans don't want to get there. It's just not that all humans can right now.
Yeah, that's a beautiful point, and I agree with you. I have a lot of grace and compassion for people in those situations. What are the solutions? I mean, I know you're doing a lot of amazing things to work towards those. You mentioned the couples retreat a little bit. What are some of your like, you know, tangible solutions? I know you mentioned that a big thing you do, which I respect, and I think it's one of the most powerful things we can do, is just seeing anybody, even the homeless guy on the street, just literally looking at him and saying, I see you. I'm you too. You know? But more, I guess, quantitatively, you know, what are some things that you have going that you're excited about?
Well, a lot of my company, Thrive FP, which is for purpose, for profit. So the idea is, how do all stakeholders win? Not just your investors or your state or your shareholders, but how does the entire stakeholders? So in a commercial real estate company that owns apartment buildings, who are my stakeholders? My residents, my managers, my staff. I've got a lot of different stakeholders. So how do we make sure that they're thriving too? Not just that because it's really simple. In commercial real estate, it's remarkably boring, right? How do I create a return? Well, you either raise revenue, which means you're raising rent, or you squeeze expenses, which can be very extractive to the resident, because you're either trying to make them use less water potentially, or you're trying to raise the rent any way you can. And by the way, I'm no angel. I'm a for-profit company. I still have a responsibility to create investor value. So I still don't have like a lot of metrics to go from. But I think when you just change your lens or your focus, that every stakeholder needs to win, including your residents. So the idea is, how do we go from being extractive to the resident to being a creative? And here's where the mindset has changed for Thrive and my nonprofit. So instead of trying to like get in this mentality of trying to squeeze the lemon dry, what about the idea of actually recognizing that these renters are not renters, they're residents. Oh wait, they're not residents, they're actually my clients. Because I don't get to drink this coffee and hang out with you unless my clients are happy.
That's true.
And how do I keep my clients happy? By taking really good care of them, and basically by showing them that I see them, I respect them, and they are my clients. Just as much as that investor, by the way, if you really think about it.
Yeah.
And guess what you create when people feel seen and heard? Retention. They want to stay in your communities. So then all of a sudden it goes from a social impact movement to a very strong economic argument that when people feel seen and heard by their owners of the residents, and they're not just writing a check to some institution that they know nothing about. And how do you do that? And I'll jump into that. Then they stay longer and they refer their friends. And then what happens? You have less turnover. So you don't have to paint the units every 50% in Texas on workforce housing apartments, which are people who make $25,000 to $85,000 a year, call it like $1,000 to $1,800 rents. In Texas, 50% of those people move out a year. Huge turnover.
Yeah, that is a large turnover.
So here's a number for you math fans out there. Every 10% of additional retention you can keep is a 6% increase in your net operating income. And for those of you, we won't go into cap rates on this show, but if you do the math, it's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars in value to just take care of your residents.
Yeah. Wow.
Hundreds of thousands.
That's a much different perspective too.
Yeah. So for me, I have a profit. I also have a nonprofit that I co-founded. And the idea for me is, everyone's talking about affordability and they're waiting for the government to fix the problem. Well, I don't even want to like mess with that. My thought is, how do we create programs that support these workforce housing residents? These are your policemen, your firemen, your teachers, the backbone of America. 41 million people. Homeless people are like a 6 million person, across the nation. This is 41 million people, families. And so the idea is, on the nonprofit side, Veritas is, how do we create programs that come with rent? So in other words, we have programs in health, education, and financial advancement, things like telemedicine. If you're a renter in certain apartments, you get teledoc. How about, helping your kids, whatever grade they're in, whatever language they speak, we can get you tutoring to support your kid.
Cool.
What about after school daycare? So you don't have to run home from your job and your kids are taken care of with a group of other kids. And all that does affect affordability because you're easing the burden on the resident.
Yeah.
And so when everyone talks about amenities in commercial real estate, and in my sector, an amenity is a sparkling pool or a laundry room or a gym.
Yeah.
Well, why shouldn't telemedicine be an amenity? So why not just like literally expand the idea of what an amenity is? And my ultimate legacy and my hope in America is that I actually change it up for the entire, that workforce housing apartment residents across the United States can expect these programs wherever. And by the way, for those who don't jump on board, and I've already had a lot of large companies jump on board hiring my nonprofit to run these for them, you're going to get left behind because my resident retention is higher than yours. So I'm going to have a better business model. So I'm a very practical capitalist with a big heart.
I see that.
But I always say your big heart has to be driven. Like if your big heart and your big, hairy, audacious goal of social impact can be backed by an economic backing and a reason, well, then it becomes competitive. I don't care if you use your head or your heart.
Yeah.
Figure out that the right thing to do is take care of your residents.
Yeah, I like that a lot. The last piece there makes me think of a saying that, prosperity, it follows purpose. It's not necessarily the other way around. I've found that personally when I've gotten deeper into my purpose and that the service work, it's like a lot of times the money and the abundance, the resources, the people, they seem to just kind of follow right along with that to help kind of support the higher good that you're doing. Yeah. Yeah. So it's cool to see. Thanks for sharing, man.
Yeah. So that's in my business. And then, really seeing if I can change the entire industry. Right now, the nonprofit Veritas, we're in about 7,500 units, about 21,000 people are affected by it. And
a lot of people.
We're growing pretty quickly. We started during COVID and we started doing telemedicine. No one had ever thought about offering free telemedicine. We're doing that through Teledoc right now. So that we kind of started there and we're got 7 full-time staff now and it's a real nonprofit and we're growing pretty quickly and
beautiful.
It's kind of fun.
Where were you when that idea came to you?
You're going to laugh. I was in Africa hiking Mount Kilimanjaro with my partner.
You're up there.
My partner in both in business, and we also co-founded the nonprofit together. And we dreamed this up. We dreamed it up. We dreamed it up while hiking Mount Kilimanjaro.
That's cool.
Oh,
He now has a social impact real estate fund called SIMFA, Social Impact Multifamily Asset. But the reason why he calls it SIMFA is because we were in Africa hiking Mount Kilimanjaro, and he managed to raise a lot of money, hundreds of millions, and with some of the top universities and pension funds behind him. And that all was created on a hike in Africa together.
special.
Love that.
Yeah.
So what, you were just on a walk, and you said, hey, what do you think about this?
Yeah.
I said, yeah, let's try it. Let's do it.
Yeah, it really was. And by the way, and then, so there's Simfa, which is obviously the African.
Yeah.
And then Simcha, which is Hebrew for to be a blessing.
Oh,
So it's kind of like went both ways.
I love it.
Yeah, we just kind of made it up. But we had some level of success. We were scrappy entrepreneurs. He found me on the internet. He was living in California. He found me on the web. And I put up a website I just started. And he actually didn't tell me this. He's like, I want to meet you. We can maybe do things together. And
so funny.
he drove from California to meet me. He didn't tell me that. He's like, it's like, oh, dude, I'll come out and meet you for lunch. But he drove from California to meet me. Can you imagine me off the internet? This was years ago, a long time ago.
Okay.
This was the beginning of my career.
Okay.
And it was really funny. He said to me, because I could tell he's younger than me and he's super sharp. And I knew he was going to be sharp and I knew he was going to be somebody. And he kind of like said to me at the end, because I'm a money provider, I'm a syndicator. So he was looking for money so he could buy the deals and operate them and I could help fund them through my investors. And he kind of let me know like a hot date. He's like, listen, I've got 7 other people courting me right now. Like, you or someone else, like someone's going to find me. Like he let me know, at the end of it. And I'm like, well, do you have another hour we can talk? Do you have a plane to catch? And he's like, no, I'm okay. I could talk for another hour. And I look outside as he was leaving and his car had California plates. And I'm like, did you drive here?
Dude.
That's wild. He wanted it.
We've been he's my brother in life and in mission and purpose. And
love that.
He has blown up his company. His company's separate from mine, but my company does a lot of the funding for his apartment deals. And it's been a beautiful relationship.
Super cool.
Yeah.
That's so special.
And he's out.
By the way, he left LA, left San Diego and moved to Austin. So now he's in Austin.
It's a vortex here, man.
It's a vortex.
This city is beautiful.
So your best business partners here, best friend from growing up is in LA.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's throw it back here for a second.
Sure.
Let's paint a picture for the people. What was the town that you grew up in?
So I grew up in Los Angeles, but I was in a town called Van Nuys.
Van Nuys.
Yes.
What's that all about?
Oh, God, there was a great film that came out. God, what was it called? Richard Linklater. It came out in the last year. And it was life in Van Nuys in the 70s. Gosh, I'll look it up for you, or maybe we'll go back to it because I can't remember what it was. It was a great film.
Yeah.
And you think about the time it was, like, I'm 56. So for me, it was about like a lot of freedom. It's kind of like the end of the hippie movement, but still kind of there. So my parents never knew where I was. Like there was no tracking on the phones. My wife tracks my kids.
Yeah.
Just be home by 7, be home by dark.
Right.
So you're going to school.
Old days.
And you're kind of floating around and, we were doing all kinds of things and definitely a free time. By the time I was 16, I was writing. My dad bought me a moped, which went 30 miles an hour. And I took it hundreds of miles all around LA. I was in the hills. I was all kinds of places.
You had an adventure.
Oh, yeah.
You had the adventure spirit. You like to travel.
And then I had a friend whose dad owned a bunch of nightclubs, famous nightclubs in LA. So by 16, we could sneak into the nightclubs.
Heck yeah, dude.
Because his dad owned them all. And we would have to take the bus because we barely could drive. Yeah. But we'd like hang out with Billy Idol. Like we were hanging out with all these movie stars at 16 wearing Billy Idol's jacket. Dancing, taking a moped with the bus. Like, we're at home. The last bus. And so, I mean, can you imagine like being up and down Hollywood and going to Hollywood parties and Sunset Boulevard and bands and doing crazy stuff? And your parents really were, I don't know, they kind of trusted me, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of shocked. But
seriously,
we did some crazy things. And it was a pretty wild time. Not PC. There was no seatbelts. There was nothing. We were just having fun.
What was it like living in your household with your particular parents? What was that like?
So my parents, again, definitely hippies.
Yeah. How so? How were they? What made them hippies?
They were hippies in that they got married at 19. It was the 60s. They got married. And I think they got married so young that, to be honest, part of it's very self-indulgent. Like, it's kind of like everything feels good. It's like, what feels good now? What's the next experience? It's a little bit of an experience junkie kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I grew up with lots of parties. There was always lots of hippie parties. There was always something going on. And from Hollywood parties to strange gurus in my house to gypsies to parties. There was always like something interesting. There was always an angle of, and on the cool side, like, I don't know if you know who Ram Dass is. He was kind of a great spiritual leader.
Yeah. R.I.P. Yeah.
So like Ram Dass, like I grew up with
your house.
Yeah, well, or other houses. I was finding the environment. Maharishi Yogi from like the Beatles.
I know. Wow.
Yogi was hanging around. Like, there was just lots of interesting things going on.
What did they do, your parents? How do they make an income? And they're being hippies, and they're like, what is?
So my dad.
If you can share, I don't know.
My dad was actually in commercial real estate, and he was doing apartments. So I grew up like. I was an investor at 7 years old.
Yeah. Wow.
And so it was kind of a family business. I knew about it for a long time. It was interesting because my dad had investors, and I watched my dad, go from nothing, being self-made, to also when Ronald Reagan changed the tax rules, it killed real estate. It took all the tax benefits out of real estate, and it cratered the value of real estate. Like, we're having a price adjustment now, but this was a crater. And I watched my dad have to like reinvent himself because all his real estate had crashed under that. And it was a macroeconomic thing. And it was an interesting experience for me because my dad, with every single investor to investor, worked it out. And it took him a couple of years to do.
How old were you when that happened?
Probably 15 or 16.
So you had a good scope of what was going on.
I did. I'd say to this day, for better or worse, I'm a very conservative with other people's money and my own money. Like, I think that I take fiduciary really seriously because I've seen what it looks like on the other side of it.
Yeah.
And I've seen people, like, even my dad wasn't like, I don't think he was, I think he could have done better with even protecting himself. So I think the lesson I got from all that was, just I think that in some ways, my partner and I, Adrian, I think we, maybe to our fault, sometimes we take fiduciary, like, we're the first ones we will take the hit before our investors. We just will. And being smart, assuming that, all that glitters is not gold. I can't tell you how many people, like, from my Hollywood days to now, how many people pitch to me every day their story. And so every real estate story, including when you're flipping a house, it's always a story. And you got to digest the story. So the numbers are the numbers, but then there's a story. And then you got to, that's where the IQ and the EQ come in, right? So there's the IQ, it's this much price per square foot. Here are the comps, right, in your world. But then there's EQ, like, I feel for, like, what's this house telling me? What's the buyer not telling me in the story? And I think one of the things for me that's most interesting, maybe after all the years of doing this, is being a naturally curious person. I ask a lot of questions, but I don't ask them always. I don't always even know why I'm asking them. It's kind of a stream of consciousness, but there's always a reason. And sometimes I don't even know the reason, but I usually will get to a conclusion in my gut. And if you listen to the conclusion in your gut, 9 times out of 10, it's right. Then I got people in my office with their spreadsheets who sometimes try to convince me that I'm wrong or this is where I got wrong. And now after being in a couple cycles, I'm pretty sure that my gut's right about, not always right, but right a lot.
If you're hitting a solid 80%.
80, 85.
80, 85.
Yeah.
That's good.
Because I think we don't take into account as much that our gut really knows a lot, especially if you've been doing this a long time. You've taken, now you've done some houses. Wait till you do 100 homes. You almost could do this with your eyes closed and you get a feel. It becomes like the shoemaker.
Yeah.
The Italian shoemaker who made shoes for 30 years. You think he can close his eyes and make a perfect shoe? Yeah. It kind of feels like that to me at this point. Like, it's just not hard. You can bring me any deal.
Yeah.
If you may not want to hear my advice, but I'll tell you what I think anyways. And,
Yeah,
that's great.
It's that intuition, that intuition you're trusting. Yeah.
I mean, I think hopefully we all can become masters of some craft that we're interested in, right? Yeah. And that's fun for us.
It is.
That's where storytelling comes in.
Yes. Yeah. So you're in California. You're living the lifestyle, hopping everywhere on your
moped. On my 30-mile-an-hour moped.
Yeah. Living a good life.
Living a good life.
Where along the lines, elementary, middle, high school, did you ever get derailed a little bit throughout that experience of yours by chance?
I did.
What does that look like?
It was actually really hard because I think in a way I lived an idyllic middle-class life growing up. Like we weren't rich, but we weren't, we always had food and always doing my little adventures. And then kind of by accident, I think, I had an awakening experience of like what life was about beyond just being 16 and, drinking beer and chasing girls in the mall.
Yeah.
And actually, it's here in Austin. If you're ever interested, it's now called Ascension Leadership Academy here in Austin. Its predecessor was called LifeSpring or Landmark Forum. And I'd call it, I'd highly recommend it. I just sent one of my employees there. It's really, if you really want to know not how you think you show up in the world, but how you actually show up to other people in the world,
Wow.
as far as how you show up to others, it's amazing how we think we show up. We think we know our story. We think we've got our story. We're very confident behind our story. You go to a party, you've told the same story 100 times. Whether you know it or not, you're just telling variations of your same story. This is even a variation of a story I've told before. It's just another iteration of it.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, what you say versus what people perceive is not the same thing. And so I highly recommend, by anyone here who's here in Austin, Ascension Leadership Academy. If you really have the courage to look deep and you want to know.
Yeah.
ALA.
Are you an affiliate with them?
No.
Oh, all right.
But it changed. But you asked me a question. Like how did I go from going on the moped to kind of like, how did things get kind of tough? So here's the answer.
Yeah.
When you start to inquire about who you are and what you're really here for, you got to be careful what you ask for, because once you let that genie out of the bottle, you're going to know the good, bad, and the ugly. And that's kind of what happened. So like I got to really see how I showed up in the world for who I was. And I started aspiring to who I actually wanted to be. And in some ways making a contract to what was actually important to me beyond going to the mall and doing those things. I really started to like call it a spiritual awakening.
Where were you?
Was this at 16 too?
This was like about 17 or 18.
Wow, that's so young, dude.
Yeah. I had Ram Dass hanging around.
It's true. Yeah, it's all those energies that were subconsciously.
This was my uncle who was meditating with Ram Dass.
I was checking that out.
That has a lot of energy for me on it. So
I noticed that.
That's my spiritual awakening. So I kind of wear it. So
beautiful.
Yeah. So I think that it was a very painful time, because what happens at a certain point in your life is like what worked or what felt comfortable doesn't feel comfortable. So like going to parties or going to the mall, or this case in college, just, getting really drunk. And like that life wasn't working for me anymore, because at a certain point I started yearning for more, but I didn't really know necessarily how to achieve that. So I started reading books, but for a while you're like a fish out of water, because it all gets confused. And
did you get any trouble by chance when you were that fish out of water, when you're at that pivotal point in your life?
No, I don't think so. I don't know. For some reason, I would say I'm an adventurer that knows kind of, I know the line how to get into trouble. I'm not getting into too much trouble. Like I know kind of stay out of jail, but kind of hit the line. But like don't like just
it's wise.
Keep it like right there.
Yeah,
that's kind of where I try to keep it. Like don't get anything that's going to get you in too much trouble.
All right.
I don't know. So that was
no prison. Okay.
No. I'm
well done.
I'm too lazy and too luxurious to like want to sit on a cold toilet.
Fair.
I need the tushy with those.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So you had the revelation.
So I had the revelation a little bit.
Books.
Yeah, books, reading, courses. Just kind of got very, very thirsty. And I think that if you look at somewhat, and it really created a lot of awkward years for me, quite frankly. My 20s, I would say, were incredibly awkward, because once you start to erase the premises that used to work for you, and you let the genie out of the bottle, but you're not quite there. You don't really know how to master flow. You don't know how to master service. Like the things we're talking about today, I might have been able to tell you out of a book, but I couldn't tell you that I could have experienced them. And I yearned for them, but didn't know how to master. And maybe like your first date, the more you chase them sometimes, the further they get away. So I'd say that, bouts of depression, bouts of anxiety, bouts of, not wanting to be at places, bouts, especially when I saw my friends starting to succeed, get these bitchin' ass jobs, or the cute girlfriend, or they're getting married and having kids, and I'm like the single guy on my 28th job, parking cars in Hollywood. I just did everything. I was just doing everything to figure it out, traveling. My story wasn't particularly sexy, and that was a really, really hard time, awkward time, and there's all kinds of things that want to grab you for me. I've had cult leaders wanting to grab me. I've had all kinds of things wanting to suck my attention, promising me that they could help me find what it is I was looking for. And as you can imagine, all that becomes very elusive. But that's part of the journey, right? You got to figure it out.
That's I would call that the lady in the red dress, like from Matrix.
Totally.
The lady in the red dress is always kind of going to be there to try to draw you in. You know? And I think it's a test. I think it's a test to kind of test like how committed we are to our soul or to our mission, to our purpose, to ourselves. You know,
I'd agree.
To what we say that we're actually here to do. I have two other things, and I don't want to cut you off.
Got this. That was your podcast. It's great, dude. No, but let it rip. Yeah, it's awesome.
Was it just when did we have our accountability on Tuesday?
Yeah.
And he did his side. We're accountability partners, so every week we have a call, and he did his aspect to me, and he was like, I'll let you do what you want to do. And me being the emotional, mindset, spiritual coach that I am, I went deep into like, more about what kind of blocks do you have and how do you define these things and what's actually going on inside of his intrinsic experience. A lot of it, what I found is like how we relate to something is what creates it. So I love going into, like you said, that curiosity, ask the questions.
Mm-hmm.
You can get through any problem or puzzle by just analyzing it and whittling the layers away.
Yeah.
Something that's very resonant with what you expressed that I think any human could ask and they will find like the most two important things that any human could find in their life is who are you and why are you here? That's what I mentioned to him on Tuesday as well. And for me, those have been the two most important questions I could ever ask myself. So I love to hear that was a part of your like journey as well. And that's something that resonates with you.
Yeah.
Powerful.
And I would say for those who have awoken into their own journey, it takes a long time. Maybe not for everybody. For me, it really took a long time to find that, and many times being frustrated and wondering if I could ever find happiness or satisfaction in this lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people younger people can get skeptical. Like, can I ever be in a happy relationship, long term or even short term? Or,
Mm-hmm.
Can I ever really find happiness in this confusing world? Can I ever feel good about myself? Exploring these different levels of love, like basic love, like. Am I even lovable? Was like question one. Am I even lovable myself?
Yeah.
Am I enough?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some basic stuff. And then, these are hard stuff. And I really have a lot of compassion. I went through a lot of suffering.
Yeah.
And it's taken a long time, but I hope, that people have mentors, whether it's a podcast like this or other things to say, hey, yeah, you do the work. It's hard sometimes.
Yeah.
You got to be resilient. But we all have a God-given right to be happy.
Mm.
And we all have a God-given right to being here on this planet, to being perfectly imperfect,
Mm-hmm.
to being here, a right to exist, a right to express our own talents, whatever they are.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't have to do with who you're with, how much money you made,
Mm-hmm.
your status, your followers on Instagram, just by being here and being a good human.
Mm-hmm.
You do have a responsibility, I believe, to be a good human. You can't just do anything that's gonna, like, your actions affect others. You do. I do think that's, if you're following the basic thesis of like, I'm here to be a good human,
Mm-hmm.
and hopefully to give more than I've taken on the planet.
Yeah.
You at least in my book and a lot of other books, I think that's the basics.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's the juice. And what's fascinating is some people would take away from that, I have to give more than I receive, and they might think that's a negative thing. But what I've found is I actually receive the most when I do give. That feeling,
Mm-hmm.
that feeling of that fulfillment, Yeah. So it's a kind of a paradoxical thing, but I think that I'm with you. Like the deeper that I go into my process and my journey, the deeper I whittle through the levels of my purpose. It comes down to this awareness and this understanding that this physical form is going to be gone at some point. And really what matters after that are my future children, your future children, our future children, and the collective humanity. And how can we impact that in the most beautiful way moving forward to give them an opportunity to have talks like this about changing the world in the best way.
Yeah, and also I think people should remember, I think we kind of also sometimes, our news hypnotizes that the world is totally falling apart. And we have to remember that actually, as a planet, health span for people, lifespan for people, education, literacy, peace,
Mm-hmm.
safety, everything is going actually really well. We just don't know it because the news only wants to talk about climate disasters and wars and where things are a problem. But remember, we are exponentially growing in health, safety.
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine with AI, it's going to take a huge load off of our workforce.
Yeah.
Give us another 50 or 100 years, as long as we don't do anything stupid with our planet, the ability for humanity to experience abundance and more people being in safety,
Mm-hmm.
whatever abundance means, it has to be sustainable abundance. Obviously, from the planet, we got to figure out that balance. Not everybody should be just ripping through on private jets and just tearing up the ozone. I think that's not a good idea. But I do think that a sustainable version of abundance, which abundance, for as we've been saying, it's safety, it's happiness. I think that we are growing it rapidly, and I think that opportunity is going to continue opening its doors.
Yeah.
I think technology used right is, a hugely powerful force for good if used right. And then, on the optimistic side, I have a huge hope and promise that humanity will cash that chip in and continue. We're already doing it, right? As we talk right now, it's happening every day. I just hope we can continue doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, I have faith in us too.
Good.
Let's talk a little bit about the power of choice, because you said you almost got distracted, or there's things trying to take your attention.
Yeah.
What ultimately had you say no when it would be so easy to fall prey to those, like the cult leaders and such?
Yeah. Well, sometimes you fall prey to them for a while. You got to go through the experience of.
Did you?
Yeah.
I've been there too.
Which time?
Oh, every time. You name it. Like all these things. Oh, yeah.
What tell us.
Well, if you watch Netflix,
Yeah.
there's a show out that came out called How to Be a Cult Leader.
Right.
Watch episode 3, and that was my cult for a couple of years. And,
that you were in.
Yes.
Oh.
In my 20s.
Wow.
Yeah.
I never met anybody that was in a cult before.
Yeah. It's pretty fun
Wow.
until it's not.
Right. Until you look around and saying, I don't know about this.
But you'll laugh. I think the experience was the guy, by the way, he's still doing his thing. And, very charismatic. And if you don't know much and someone can promise you that they can bring you happiness or joy if you just follow them, and they have the answer, they've got the secret, which how many people promise? You think about it every day on Instagram. Someone's promised you they've got something that you don't have. It could be a cosmetic product. They can give you more hair, more happiness, more money. Everyone is preaching. It's kind of funny if you ever take the sound off of Instagram, you just kind of watch everyone going like this with their hands. Everyone's telling you don't have something, and I have something for you. And if you just follow this program, this product, this thing, then you'll be happy.
Yep.
And that's not that different. So when we say a cult leader, it's not really all that different. This guy's product was, I can show you enlightenment, right?
Yeah.
So going through that experience, I didn't last long because some people were really good disciples. I'm a horrible disciple because he's like,
Keep that.
you need to put money. You need to put money aside. You need to put relationships aside. You need to put the whole world aside and just be with me and serve me. And I'm like, but I really like money and I'm really ambitious and I actually think I want to date and I think I want to be in the world. I don't think I want to be here. Like I like meditating, but I don't think I want that. So I didn't last long. I'm a horrible disciple. Which, by the way, he's like, you'll be unhappy because you are not a good disciple. And I'm like, I guess, but I don't see any other choice because that's what I'm going to do in this world. And so, but to your question though, like, I'm so glad I went through that because then that taught me that nobody can bring me my happiness. Only I can self-actualize myself.
That's it.
How old were you when you were in that?
20 or 21.
2021.
Yeah.
And you went through this process at such a young age.
I did.
Yeah. Would you say that has a lot to do with kind of where you're at now in your life? Because you got to go through that earlier.
Definitely.
Wow.
This was all an extension. This is just the play kind of continuing just at a different age. It's more fun now than it was, being 21.
I believe it. Maybe a little less friction.
Less friction.
Yeah.
Different, you continue growing. The journey just keeps continuing.
Yeah.
Hopefully, if you're lucky, you're learning it.
Yeah.
You keep unfolding. You keep learning things.
Yeah.
So
infinite.
You get out of the cult, and then.
Oh, you're right. When we started the podcast, I'm like, there'll be nothing. I've never talked about this before, so there we go. I've never talked about being part of a cult, so you just got that out of me.
Check the box.
Hello. That was JP Newman. It was in a cult.
Oh boy, it's going viral.
So
Going viral.
Just kidding.
So walk us through what happened next, your next phase. Like, because we got a little while before you reach 35, 36.
Yeah.
We got a good bit to get through.
Yeah.
So what happened during that time? I mean, you're up and down, you're doing all these jobs.
Figuring shit out, just figuring things out. I think literally between jobs, books, explorations, traveling, just kind of figuring it out.
Women.
I think my whole 20s was about just learning and trying to figure things out. And, by the time I got to my 30s, I had a good job. I think I told you I was in corporate America doing my thing. So I was doing the Hollywood, wearing the Hugo Boss suits, driving the nice car, making some pretty good money.
Yeah.
Being at a movie studio, it was pretty fun. I was the youngest vice president in a division of 500 people. I had my assistant and my balcony in the movie studio. So I kind of got to experience that experience.
What did they see in you? Out of all the people, you're the youngest one.
Yeah.
What was it?
Oh, I'm a scrappy motherfucker. Excuse me. Can't say.
Oh, you can't.
I'm
You can't.
scrappy.
The kids are tough.
I love that.
What makes you scrappy? Where does that come from? Gosh.
There is a strong resilience in me. It might have, part of it, I think you're born with, it's in your spirit, but I think part of it actually, when your parents tell you you're great, or even your grandparents tell you you're special at a young age, I think part of me just believed it. Just believed it.
So it wasn't aggression that brought you to being resilient. It wasn't like, I'm a tough son of a bitch. I'm a tough son of a... You're like, no, I'm great.
But it really was. But I'd work hard. I mean, it's one thing to say it, but people see it in you. And I just think like Avis, I tried harder in everything that I did. I think I tried harder in everything. I think in my career, I had a couple startups that failed, but everything I did, even to this day, I say, don't waste my time. And I know you can appreciate this with a team. I only want the A team. And I've always wanted, don't waste your time. If you're not going to be the A team, don't waste my time. Don't do anything 80%, including your relationships, including your marriage. All in or don't bother. I'm an all-in guy. I'm a pain in the ass to a lot of people, including my staff, I'm sure. But don't, B+ is so lame. It's so lame. So do things you love and just do it at 110%. And I think that was the difference. They shouldn't have hired me at Sony. They hired me as a vice president. I had experience that wasn't completely relevant to what they needed. They saw something in me. They didn't want a handhold. They wanted to build a children's division, and they had about $150 million to spend, and they gave it to me and said, just go build a division out for us. And I think they were so busy doing feature films, they just kind of left it to me to do.
Yeah.
And I didn't need much handholding, but I was a pain in the ass because I would just get it done. But sometimes I would piss people off along the way. And that's where I had corporate limitations, because sometimes you got to kiss people's butts. And I'm more like A to B, not A to C to B. But sometimes in corporations, you need to be A to C to B. But that's never been my stronghold. So I remember when I got promoted, my boss, who actually turned out to become the chairman of the studio, he ran the studio about 5 years later, said, I'd love to fire you sometimes. You're such a pain in the ass. But he says, you just keep producing for me. I just got to promote you. And so that's how I became the vice president.
Results.
Okay.
You can't argue results.
All right.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Man.
Super cool. I wanted to go back to, you mentioned, we kind of brushed over it, but it seemed like it was a pretty important kind of step for you kind of evolving. And it was that Ascension Academy that's here in Austin.
Yeah.
What did they do in there? I'm curious, especially being a coach and being in psychology.
Yeah.
I'm very fascinated. What happened in there?
Well, I went to the same, it was it was a cousin, but it's very, very similar.
Okay.
And, you can't talk about the specific exercises, but what I would tell you is that, you have a group that's completely committed to you.
Okay.
And, most people, as we all do, most of us live a lot of our time in our heads.
Yeah.
And I think they've really figured out the processes, and with total commitment in their coaches that are well trained to help pull you out of your head. And sometimes it's comfortable, sometimes it's less comfortable, but to pull you out of your head to see what's actually really going on. And what amazes me about humans, including myself, is how much we're driven by unconscious behavior.
Oh yeah.
Right? We're still in survival mode, or we're still navigating around that wound, and we're successful, but in a weird way, we have this control issue, or we can't surrender our hearts because something, whatever, we all have our own version. And as humans, just like animals, we all get our traumas. That's part of that's what duality on this earth is about. But knowing that, and then having some ability to clear your traumas, just like animals shake it off. The deer is being chased by the lion. If he doesn't get eaten and killed, what will the deer do? He'll shudder, and he'll shiver, and they shiver, and they shake, and they get it all out of their body. Move the energy, and then they can go on and being a deer again. Yep. Well, no one really taught us how to shake it off, right? Except Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
So
nice.
Right? So I think this idea, and that's when you asked me the question, I think that's part of what we're learning to do is how do we process these things so that we can be more fully alive?
I like that. Yeah. Yeah. I focus a lot of the work that I do on a personal level, and then with clients as well, for the ones who are ready for it. Like if I had, like when Greg and I are working together, he's done so much work on himself. He's fully open to being able to receive these concepts of the subconscious mind holding, all of our life's traumas and problems and conflicts. And I would even argue not just in this lifetime, but ancestral too. I think some of our traumas come from our mother and father, and maybe even their mother and fathers, these beliefs that are subconscious beliefs that are in our DNA.
Yeah, I agree.
That, we have to work through to get ourselves to a place to where I think we can actually be who we came here to be. So that's powerful. I know you're not supposed to share like what you guys did in there, but I think it'd be powerful for the listeners, let's just say one thing, not necessarily from that Ascension Academy, but in your life to help you with those subconscious limitations and traumas and things. Like, was there a technique? Is there a perspective that you would give if you could?
So I think it's really interesting. I mentor a lot of young people, entrepreneurs at this point. And what I find, and I talk about a lot on my podcast, is that because we tend to be in our head a lot of times, we know how a lot, but we don't know why. We really don't dig deep into our whys. And I think more and more when people look like, I know you're a successful real estate guy, so you get this, people are like, oh, real estate must be easy. People get rich in real estate. How many people get rich in real estate in what you do? What percent of the people?
10%.
Right. 10%. But do you think 10% of the agents are making a good living right now?
Not so much.
I don't think so. What percent of the agents in your industry are making a good living, right? Like let's say over $250,000 a year. How many agents? What percent?
Geez, man, like 3%.
I bet you might be 1.5.
1.5.
Maybe 3.
Yeah.
There's the point. Everyone thinks everything's easy, and it's not. Because all that glitters is not gold. Everyone thinks that real estate's easy. You have worked your ass off. I didn't know your story, and I know you've worked your ass off. Because you couldn't be where you're at if you didn't. I've worked my butt off. I have grinded for years to get to where I'm at. And so the reason why I mention that is that I think people, to grind and not know your purpose of why you're grinding or where you're trying to get to is kind of, and I did it for many years. I'm not like, I have a lot of empathy, but I think that, and sympathy, but I think that your why ultimately, whether you listen to Simon Sinek on TED or if you really go deeper into your thing, I mean, your why is ultimately going to be an emotion. Like, so, and I find people are like, I had a funny one last week, but I'll say that one. But like, people always think it's an idea, and it's really not an idea. It's actually an emotion. Right? If you think about it, when you really get to your bottom line of your why, when you really start to get down, like for instance, I said, why do you want to be in real estate? Well, I want to do houses. Well, why do you want to be in the housing business? Well, because I want to make people happy. Well, why do you want to make people happy? And you go and you go and you go and you dig and you dig and you dig. There's usually a root emotion that you're trying to get to. And it's just hard to get to that emotion. So when you ask me the question, I think if people earlier on, and it's very hard to do. And I'm actually, my next episode on my podcast is actually a 1 hour how to do this deeper. How to I have something called the Starbucks exercise, which is the first thing I tell people to do is go to Starbucks and write a piece on a piece of paper. It's 3 years from now. Never go more than 3 years. It's just too hard to figure out your life. And be audacious. Like, let go of your brain and tell me what your life's like in 3 years from now. No holds barred. Don't tell me, don't get practical.
Yeah.
I wake up, I'm on a yacht. I was like literally start training your brain and just start. And I say, do this with a pen. Don't do this with your computer. You could. I just think what you're doing is you're actually giving your brain a chance to get out of your head of, I can't do this. I can't because I don't have enough money. I don't have enough this. I don't have enough. And play with the idea. If I had enough, it could feel like this. And then from that openness, it gives you a little pathway into clearing your head to starting to maybe say what's actually important to me versus what I think is important to me. So I start with the Starbucks exercise as number one for almost anyone who wants to be mentored by me. And they'll come back with that and tell me what'd you learn from the Starbucks exercise? And then my next episode is going to be how you actually really take that much deeper to go from that beginning of openness to how you can really get deep into your why. And then you turn your why into, for me, your why will ultimately become a paragraph of what you're here to serve. And I think if you can actually get to that paragraph of what you're actually here on this planet to serve, and you can know it and wake up, then here's what happens. Every opportunity, including this invitation to be on your podcast, comes from choice. I chose to be here right now. I could be doing 100 things right now. You're not paying me, right? Are you paying me to be here? Was there paid?
Free hugs.
Free hugs. So I actually work on free hugs then, because I choose to be here, because the idea of spreading the mission of love, humanity, education, acknowledgement, pushing people forward is part of what I'm about. So like, this is a hell yes for me. I'll keep speaking if people want to hear about it. So the more you know what your mission is, the more you can say hell yes or hell no. Because sometimes things like really sexy, like, hey, you want to go to this 3-day yoga retreat and this, and you can kind of go and say, does this really, it sounds good. Like, or someone's trying to talk me into it. Or maybe this career as a mold inspector will be great. But do I really want to be a mold inspector? Do I really want to be a crypto? Do I really want to be a crypto bro? Like, do I want to be a crypto bro? Really? Like, if it wasn't for the money, is there something in me that wants to be a crypto bro? And how many things can we say that seem sexy out there? It's not, and so I think the more you can start to get connected to your whole body, your mind, body, spirit, and as your navigator, then hopefully you're making better decisions on who you're spending time with and how you're spending your time.
I love that. That's a beautiful message, man. World needs that message.
Do you have your purpose written down?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's in my office.
You see it every day.
With pictures, visual. It's a whole poster. It's a 24. It's a 20. Now it's better than that. It's a 24 by 36. I had a graphic artist. Like, it's a work of art.
Yeah.
With pictures of everything that makes me happy.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We should pencil that.
It's everything. It's everything that brings me joy. But it also it starts out with 3 words. It's 2026, and here's my life from the minute I wake up, and here's what I'm doing. Here's what I'm doing it with. Here's my purpose. Here are my values. Here's how I express it in every aspect of my life.
So you're living from the future, and then you're just essentially, are you tracing your steps back to that place?
You reverse engineer it. And the cool thing to do is reverse engineer from the day you die. If you really want to get bold, watch yourself dig the hole in the ground, dig your own grave.
Wow.
And then think about what people are saying about you and say, is that the legacy you want to have?
I like that. It's powerful.
One of my guests recommended writing my eulogy.
Yeah.
And I did that.
Huh.
It was quite a surprise what that did for me. Yeah. I recommend it.
Yeah, I haven't done that. I need to do that.
Send it.
Yeah. We need to go to Africa too.
Let's go to Africa.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Because you never know when innovation is going to strike. You could be on the side of a mountain in Africa.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about, because we got a strong grasp of where you're at, what you like to do. What's next for you? Because you've got a lot of time left here.
Yeah.
You got a lot of big aspirations.
Yeah.
What's going to ultimately inspire you every day when you get up?
I'm pretty inspired these days. Every day I wake up, I'd say I'm fairly inspired at this point.
Yes.
So,
yes.
When I look out, my core, this goes back to my purpose, is to look at life through curiosity and to always be an inspiration, starting with my family first, my community, my friends, my community, and then Mother Earth, like kind of expanding out. And those are all my priorities in that order. So for me, every day spent doing that wisely, being a value, being a creative to whether you're in family first, which, and then expanding out is really what's important to me. I feel like right now, you go through phases in life and they talk about this. This comes from the Talmud, if I can be a little Talmudic on you.
Yes, but yeah.
So the Talmud talks about there's different stages in life. You spend your 20s figuring out who you are. Your 30s, you work your butt off, and whatever you're going to be, the best postman ever, the best baker, whatever that's going to be. And if you're lucky, maybe by your 30s or 40s, you meet your relationship, the love of your life, and maybe you start having kids. And then it kind of says, look, by your mid-40s, if you haven't been stricken down with any horrible health disease and you actually met someone and you've started a life and maybe you've had kids and you've had whatever success looks like, there's no dollar amount. Like if life has done you well, yeah, we're not talking about millions, it's just done you well, that you weren't stricken down with a disease, nothing bad happened to you, and you're kind of hanging out, it's time to start thinking about paying it forward. And I love this idea of these stages in life. And I think that I'm in the stage now of the idea of it's kind of being, I hate to say it, but it's like a wise elder. And if you think about very tribally, or it takes a village, there's different ages to be different things to people, and we learn from each other. And I think there's a certain moment where it's less about you. I think in your 20s and 30s and 40s, it's about your career, your love, your dating, your the business, your this. And hopefully maybe you get to a point where you can just dial that back a little bit and say, okay, life's been good to me so far, as Joe Walsh says. I saw the Eagles on Friday. And how can I pay that forward as, again, I hate to use wise elder because that sounds so old, but I don't know any other way to say it. I think there are phases in life, and to be an inspiration, to be guidance to people, I think is a super important role. And I really would encourage people that hopefully if you get to this point of life that you have enough, you feel like your bowl is full, don't wait till you're 40 or 45. Start it when you're 25. Start it by donating $10 a year. Then make it till it hurts. If you made $20,000 that year, donate $200. Like, just keep pushing and pushing and pushing and growing and growing. Don't wait. Work that muscle early. I think so many people wait. They say, I will do this when XXX, when I'm married, when I'm happy, when I have this job, when I'm making this. But I'd say develop that skill right now. Don't wait for anything. But then at a certain point, go big. Go big. So when you ask me the question, like, what does it look like going forward for me? I think I'm already living that life today, which is service. So the answer is, because I'm an ambitious, go ahead.
The flame within comes from providing service.
Yeah.
The electricity.
A servant leader.
Yes.
Think about a servant leader. Yeah. What about an entrepreneur that's also a servant leader?
Right.
I mean, a great human being, a servant leader. And sometimes it's not about money. I'm starting a nonprofit. I hadn't started. My nonprofit's 5 years old. That's like a full-time job, except I don't get paid for it. But it's pretty cool to think maybe I can change the legacy that 41 million people in America can get free programs with their rent. And if I can effectuate that, that's kind of cool. So I got a lot of work to do.
That's amazing.
I got a lot of work
well
to do.
worth it. Well worth the work.
Right. So that's one day at a time.
Okay. Wow. That's fired up.
I love the selflessness too.
Yeah.
Asked him his meaning and purpose, and I think a lot of people would turn to inward and start to talk about like me and I, and you said my family, and you kind of rippled out to it's just these external layers, and then Mother Earth, and then inspiring people. So that just goes back to the humility. That's beautiful. It's definitely inspiring.
Well, as you probably guys all know, selfishly getting out of your own way is where you'll be happiest anyways. Like, don't get too caught up in yourself. It's kind of a fruitless pursuit.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Dead end road.
You're chasing your tail for a while.
Is there anybody that's alive that you haven't been able to chat with that you think you'd enjoy a conversation with?
A couple people, yeah.
A couple?
Couple.
What comes to mind?
Well, I have to tell you, and I probably could meet him. I just haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
There's a guy named Peter Diamandis out there. I don't know if you know Peter Diamandis.
Where's he at? Is he up north?
Yeah.
America?
Northern California.
Why isn't he? Okay.
Singularity University. He did the $100 million X Prize. He's worked with Elon Musk and Ray Kurzweil. He's kind of one of the top thinkers in the world. And what I feel like I'm a little bit of a fanboy. I've seen him speak, and I'm a fanboy of his because in a world that tends to be very dystopian, Peter stands for a utopian future, that humanity through technology can have abundance. We can have, like, the world is better than you think. And he does it based on facts. He looks at AI. He looks at how much longer we're living, how cancer is down 5%. Like, he quantifies it. So it's not just a feel good, but he's like a guy that really stands for a utopian futures for humanity.
Wow.
And it seems like everyone's kind of professing that the world, that we're just going to basically blow each other up one day. And I like this idea. And if you keep, whether it's Hollywood, or rappers keep singing about the same garbage, we're storytellers. We're human beings are incredibly creative. We will eventually fulfill the story that we're telling. So what story would you rather tell?
Words matter.
Words matter.
Yeah.
Sure do.
Yeah.
Powerful.
And then you said there's a few more people.
So he's one.
Yeah.
I actually think I'd like to meet with Bill Clinton.
Dude, I know where I would take that conversation. Maybe you would take it somewhere else. What would you talk about with Bill?
Well, he was it's like
Big Willie.
Big Willie.
Just kidding.
I think that it was a different time in America, right? Like, you think about 2000, you probably don't remember this because, again, his campaign was the Fleetwood Mac song, Don't Stop Thinking About Tomorrow.
Oh.
Can you imagine today Joe Biden or Donald Trump running on a song that Don't Stop Thinking About Tomorrow?
Not happening.
People would be like, that's not real. We can't, like, 2000, the millennia, you think about it when it changed. First of all, America had no debt. We had made so much money and so much prosperity. We had about 6 months when America had a surplus.
Whoa.
All we talk about is that but like, Don't Stop Thinking About America. Fleetwood Mac singing for Bill Clinton. I'm not saying about Bill Clinton. It was kind of a time. There was an optimism in the song. Like there was a promise. We have no debt. We didn't have a lot of conflict going on. We actually didn't know what to do with our money. We had money to spend. We could spend it on teachers. We could revamp education. We could create new infrastructure. Like, we're floating in money. America is floating in money. We're not in a war. People are relatively healthy. We're going into 2000. Like, everything was a possibility for a moment.
Yeah.
And I would have been interested to sit down with them and ask them what that moment was like. Whoa. Because we don't have that optimism anymore. And I'd love to hear the wise elders. I don't think that, people feel that. I think, and so that was really cool. And I think that when he was playing the saxophone on The Late Show with Dave Letterman, like, I wish, can you imagine Donald Trump or Joe Biden, like, jamming with a band? Yeah. There's no artistry there. There's no humanity there. You've got stick figures on both sides, like stiff stick figures. Where's the fun? Where's the artistry? Where's the humanity?
It's definitely lacking.
That, again, Clinton won he was charismatic. Whether you liked him or not, doesn't matter. Forget your political views. Everyone relax on your political views. Just think of a guy who's like on the Late Show circuit, playing the saxophone and playing cool songs. Like I'd want again, I don't care what political party, I want humans that seem or pretend they seem, or maybe they really do care, to like be a servant leader to run our country. So I think that's what the fascination comes from.
Interesting.
Well put. Stick figures.
Stick figures now. Yeah. Right now, they're just people who can raise their names, their brands, their names and brands, but they feel very fake.
Yeah.
Artificial.
Yeah. So in closing here, a couple questions I always like to ask.
But you go deep, bud. You guys are good at this shit. I've been on a lot of podcasts.
It's fun.
You've dug very deep.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Impressive.
Thank you. So let's throw it back to little you.
Okay.
Right. You're growing up in your household with your family, and you might be a little confused with who these people are doing whatever they're doing. What would you say to yourself now?
At what age? What age was I in this? Like,
you're in elementary school.
Wow.
What would you tell yourself?
I feel like we're about to go on a shamanistic journey together.
We are, actually. Surprise.
I forgot my sage in Palo Santo. I almost brought my sage.
Plot twist.
Let's do it.
Turn it open. Let's open the portal.
I wish that little kid would know that everything, even though it may not seem like it's going to go brilliantly, like whatever that brilliantly, it's going to be magic, whatever magic means, and all the failures and all the sadness and all the bullies and all the name calling and all the awkwardness of being too short, too large, too skinny, too fat, too this, too that, and all that weirdness, all that awkwardness, all the first dates, all the setbacks, all the jobs I didn't get, all the shit that didn't happen, all the failures, all the internet companies that I started that didn't work. Like, somehow going back and saying to that kid, it's all magic. Relish it in all. Relish in the whole thing. It's what makes life rich. But just believe in yourself the whole time. Like it doesn't matter. Like, know who you are and that you're one resilient MF. And it doesn't really matter what the end result is. Just like stick to your roots, stick to your values, and keep learning. And everything else is magical. And you're the magical manifester. If there's something like that, I wish I had that assurance, because I feel like I spent so much time not knowing, and the fear of not knowing. But what if we all had that, like, that voice in us that somehow, some way, whatever it meant, to feel whole. It's not about money. It's easy to take it to a money figure, to feel whole. Yeah. But we're all going to get there. We all have that within us. We all have that ability. It's a gift. Yeah. We just got to find it.
Just have to allow it. I feel like it's actually always here, for everybody to receive.
Right.
I think honestly, why so many people are misled, and I know this from experience, I think it goes back to the way that society is shaped and modeled. Like you were saying earlier, everything is telling us we're not good enough, and it's telling us that what we need is outside of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And it's somewhere other than here and now. And, you know, the truth is that that's available to us now, you know, and to everybody. So, yeah, thanks for being here, man. Thanks for sharing, you know, your gifts, brother, and your blessing.
And we got to know, what is the money mystic?
How'd you hear about that? How did you hear about that? Boom.
I might have heard it from a little bird.
Ooh, wow. You really are digging at everything today, aren't you? Well, I haven't really announced it yet, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. But I think the idea of the money mystic is, I think we think of money as being separate from other energies. You're right. We think of like our health as an energy, right? If you have good health, you've got lots of energy. Usually, if you're sick and disease, you usually have low energy, right? So the idea that money is just currency like any other energy, and just understanding what money is and what money isn't, and really putting it in terms of like, don't make it such a mystery. So kind of the money mystic is, how do we demystify money? And how do we demystify the currency? And knowing what it is and what it isn't, and how to use it. How to use it like flawlessly, not having to work so hard for it, against it, protecting it, making it. Like, what if we could just like flow with it?
Yeah.
Just like water.
Yeah.
So the idea is helping people with some ideas of how to create better flow and a better relationship with that currency.
I like that.
Now, is that a curriculum? Is it an organization? Is it a club?
It's coming up. It's
a secret. It's a secret.
Is it a cult?
It might be.
Where do we sign?
It might be a cult. You want to come in?
Maybe.
Yes, I'm lost.
It's being birthed as we speak.
Beautiful.
Very cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Wow. This is fired up at a minimum.
Wow.
Yeah. Thank you.
I just thought I was coming here for free coffee. Like, who knew how good this was going to be?
Yeah, we turn it up.
That was a cherry on top.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
JP.
Yeah.
Really appreciate you. I think we have a special guest that doesn't know that we're in this room. That's downstairs waiting for us.
Awesome.
So we're going to close up shop here and greet our guests, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in today. How can people reach you?
You can reach me at thrivefp.com. ThriveFrankPeter.com is my company, JP at thrivefp.com. And my podcast is Investing on Purpose. And it's on all where you'd expect it, YouTube, Spotify, and all those places. Better not to email me because my assistant gets kind of frustrated. So better probably just check out my podcast. And if there's anything specific, my assistant can help with that.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Let's do it. You heard it here first, folks. Till next time. Cheers.
Cheers.